You guys don't even have a talk back on. Good morning once again. My name is Priva Elibas. Thank you so much for keeping it right here at Sunrise at Sea. It's an interesting Monday morning, very chilly right here in Kampala. So I hope you have a cup of coffee because you will need it for this conversation that we're going to have today. So I'm excited because in studio I have the beautiful ladies Agio Wase and Shivana Uma. Good morning.
Good morning.
Good morning.
How are you?
Fine, thank you.
So well, today we're going to be discussing an interesting topic, trauma bonding. But then before we get, I beg your pardon, trauma dumping. But before we get to trauma dumping, let's first start with a less not interesting, but a less complex term like venting, because I'm sure in all our daily lives we've all, experienced some sort of venting. Either we are the ones who are venting to someone else, or that person is venting to us. So now, I mean, I've had so many days where I've gotten off work and I've had a stressful day and I've, called like my sister or called my friend and, shared how I had like, a nasty day, and you get over it. 2 minutes, you've vented, you've shared how you're frustrated about your day, you've vented, you're on a rant, but after 3 minutes it is done. Now that's called venting. But when you start oversharing personal information or traumatic experiences, then it turns into something that is called trauma dumping. But the very first question I would want to ask you guys, have you ever been dumped on or the dumpy when it comes to trauma dumping? I want to start with you, Shivan.
I would say it would go two ways. I've been a mixture of both.
You've dumped on someone and they've also dumped on you.
Exactly.
Okay.
But I would say it's something that doesn't happen intentionally. For example, I'll give an example. For people who understand mental health, if I'm suffering from PTSD from an experience where I was raped, and it's something that every time I think about rape, it triggers me into a depression. And you out of, you want to inform me we are doing Lugambo, then you randomly say, oh, can you imagine so-and-so has raped? And then you even go to the extent of giving me details.
Yes.
You're trauma dumping, but you don't actually realize it, but that is a trigger for me. I'll give an example, and I was telling Priva when we were seated in the production set, and then I said, I realized I was actually doing trauma dumping because yesterday, when I sent a message, because I lost my nephew yesterday, Akai, and coincidentally, Priva has a little boy also called Kai. So I randomly texted her and said, Kai is dead, I'm going for a vigil, he had a hole in the heart. But later when I sat down and read, I'm like, wait, this is trauma dumping. If Priva wasn't at home, she would have thought her Kai was dead. I would have been more,
really?
Yes, actually when you think about it, I would have said so and so and so, like he's a son to my cousin, and then in brackets I put the name, but I just said Kai is dead. I mean, as a mom, that was trauma dumping in a way.
Now that you say
because a name like Kai would trigger me in any way.
Exactly, would trigger her definitely.
But also, before we actually continue with the conversation, we have to keep in mind that trauma dumping happens at the most inappropriate times.
Yes.
Like you just drop it on someone. You're not sure
during
if
lunch break.
You're not sure if they actually have the capacity to actually receive the information that you're giving them.
Yeah.
I would like to have your take.
Well, for me, I think I've been mostly on the side of the dumpy. They've been
dumping on you.
They've been dumping on me. I think back in the day, I actually used to trauma dump. Right? That's the word. But that was largely on my mom and then my siblings. And sometimes it was friends until I realized that actually it's not a good thing to share just anything and everything, especially if there are really big issues in your life with just anyone. And that's an aspect of trauma dumping. So as I grew older, I started having a grip on my emotions, a grip on my privacy and my secrecy. I'm very specific on who I tell certain things about my life, because I imagine trauma dumping, whether you're talking about, it could be an issue like divorce. Yes, that's a very big issue. Yeah, you cannot just be talking to your workmate about it and then, putting on the table everything that has happened, how you're going through a divorce and how your husband is treating you here and there. You really have to see how much information you put out there to everyone. So that I learned over time. However, like I said, I think I'm on the side of the dumping because people are always dumping on my side. And you're welcome. You're welcome because I think I'm a very good listener.
I think after diving deep into this particular topic and researching more about it, I realized that we trauma dump subconsciously. Or even when we do, we don't actually realize it. But some of the characteristics of trauma dumping is that you find yourself talking about the same story time and time and again, yes? Or you may be having conversations with someone, but somehow you find a way of sneaking it in, yes? I'm going to give an example of, I don't know who keeps up with the Bravo TV shows, yeah, those reality TV shows. Well, Real Housewives of Atlanta, yes, I'm going to give that example because it's one of the most like widely viewed franchises in reality TV history. So there's a certain lady, she's called Marlo Hampton. Now, she had a very interesting life. At 10 years, she escaped from home because she was suffering from a lot of abuse from the mom. And she felt like, you know what, I cannot take this anymore. So she ran away from home and was in different foster care places for about like 8 years until she outgrew the foster care at 18 years and was able to run away and, you know, go and hustle with life. But then she got into a lot of trouble, of course, because, you know, you're moving from one foster care to another one to another foster home like that. So why I'm bringing this giving you this background of a story is that on the show, we constantly see her using her trauma as an excuse to avoid accountability. Yes? You understand? Like someone says something, they're like, instead of, you know, owning up to what you've done, they go like, but you know, this is a trigger for me. I was in a foster, you know, home for so many years and this and this. So those are some of the characteristics of people who actually trauma dump. But let's talk about social media, because that's one of the, in the interest of time, I've realized that people go on social media to trauma dump, but they don't even realize they're actually doing it. Do you guys agree that actually social media has become a breeding place for trauma dumping?
Let's take a look at the video that went viral of the lady that was beating that child. That video was horrific. For imagine a mom who left her child here in Uganda and is in another country, and you're watching how another mother, a nanny, a caretaker is treating a child, and you're only imagining, what is my own nanny doing in my home? In one way or the other, we don't realize it, but posting also of such negative videos, we need to think about, for example, you're posting let me give an example, even not just social media. For example, Aggie is pregnant, you know, you're about to give birth, and then I come and tell you,
I refuse it, I can wait.
And then I come and tell you, Aggie, can you imagine so and so had a miscarriage? Then I go ahead to give you the details and even show you pictures. And I'm like, for a moment, you've forgotten that the person that you're showing is expecting a baby. That alone could trigger her. It could cause her emotional damage. So yes, I think we need to also be very sensitive with the kind of content that we put on social media, because in a way, we are triggering and we are trauma dumping people.
It's called actually vicarious trauma. So basically, you see something on social media, but you're living vicariously through it because it's affecting you.
I do think that is absolutely true, because well, for some people, they actually don't have people that they trust enough to talk to. I have seen people who put out posts there on social media, and they don't really directly say it's about them, but you can tell they're either sarcastically speaking, or like you can read through their emotions if you're very attentive and keen about their posts, and you're like, this person must really be going through something. So it comes from some people who probably don't have, you know, someone to confide in, to talk to. And then yes, for other people, it's about putting their experiences out there so that other people can learn from them and see how to go about it, especially if they have overcome the situation and it's now in their past. Then yeah, someone else might be going through the same thing, and maybe they just want to give them a word of encouragement also. But yes, social media on the other end, I think it's because right now we're in an era where we want people or the world to see what we are going through. Could be bad, could be good. Like, you couldn't care less what people perceive of you. You just want to put your entire life out there, because whether it's because of competition or, you know, trying to live up with certain standards.
Or seeking sympathy as well.
Or seeking sympathy. Yes, some people have actually put negative videos out there, and you know, asking for creating GoFundMes and what, and yes, they've actually scammed people and got some money out of it. They really create a story that you cannot even think that is false. So yeah, there is that as well.
Well, for me, speaking about the issue of social media, I remember when I was pregnant with my son, I used to get on social media on Instagram, and there's this one post that I came across of a lady who had a still bath. Now listen, you guys, I was in my final days. I was like, in my final days, I get onto the gram and I see someone talking about a still bath and, you know, giving their whole experience, how they had a couple of days to go, to give birth and hold their baby in their arms, I was traumatized.
You see?
That was vicarious trauma, because it's like, yes, I sympathize, with your story, but you've done this thing with me. Like, I just came across it on my timeline. Yeah. So it's interesting. But now in a culture where we are constantly told to address our mental health and speak up and, share how we feel, how do you think we can handle our trauma without necessarily trauma dumping?
I think, first of all, seek a therapist. It's very important when you find someone who is very professional. Yes. And well, people could argue out there that therapists are not affordable, because in Uganda right now, the cheapest therapist, one session is like 50,000. Are you able to afford that? Yes, 50,000. And that is, you have probably, that's a session of like an hour. Yeah. So, and if, let's say you have to go for therapy every 3 days in a week, can you be able to afford that? The average Ugandan may not be able to afford it. But if you cannot afford a therapist, a professional therapist, I think you can confide in someone that you really trust. I know trust doesn't come easy, even with me, but you can learn at least to trust that one person, because you cannot live as an island. Trust me, there's when the world, comes down on you and you don't know what to do, and you just need to put it out there, even if they don't provide a solution, but at least someone to listen to you, and you know that you've put it out there. It's very important. And yes, for people who go to church, I mean, the people who have cells, Christians, yes, I'm a Christian as well. You can share with your cell members about some of the things that you're comfortable sharing. By the way, you shouldn't be on pressure to share a certain part of your life or certain experiences unless you really want to know.
You're ready to.
Put you in that
but
situation.
Aggie, let me first stop Aggie right there. Do you think by the time you start trauma dumping, you're ready to actually speak up to someone about
For some people, it may be out of impulse, and for other people, they might have really thought through it,
and they're really
ready, they're ready. Yes.
Oh, okay, perfect. Yes,
I understand what Aggie is saying, but you see, I have a problem with the two phrases that you mentioned. One, with someone that you trust, or people that you go to church, and you see, here is the thing.
Providing solutions.
No. The people that we are talking to, are they ready for this kind of information? It's very important. Even while we're talking about like how we can do it in a healthy way, I'm planning to get married. And because, we're having a good time, girls come and tell me, hey, have you heard of this couple? They got married, the man started beating her, the woman is suffering. Madam, my wedding is 2 days away from now. You're telling me this nonsense. As a woman getting married, don't you think I'm going to be traumatized? Because you're actually trauma dumping. So in a way, I think we need to weigh in on when, how, and who we are relaying this information to. If we had, for example, if you're saying, okay, let's talk to someone I trust.
Could be your mother. Your mother will always be there. I would want to think so.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
In an ideal world.
Yes. Not the realistic one.
Pun intended.
My point is, you just have to look at the circumstances involved. The people you're telling, at what point are you telling them? What are they going through at that point in time?
Because then, if we have to think about someone might be going through something for me to tell, okay, maybe it's an issue of
should not be a brainer to someone.
Maybe
someone
you have to ask you,
why are you telling someone about miscarriages and stillbirth? As someone is going through an emotional breakdown, or someone is about to get married, why are you telling them about breakups and someone who recently got married and they're being treated as a slave?
I understand where Shivani is
You get what I'm
from,
saying?
Yes.
Like, do not relay this information to someone already who is having trauma because of that.
You see, by the time you start talking about your personal trauma, it's most likely that you've already processed it. For you, you're at a healing stage, you're ready to talk about it and put it behind you. But you forget that sometimes the person you're trying to trauma dump on is probably experiencing that personal trauma you're going through for the very first time.
Exactly.
You understand? Like, they're going through it for the very first time. So they may not be able to help. I'm experiencing what you're experiencing, but it's my first time, whereas you've been dealing with this for like 10 years now.
You might actually comfort them, I would think so. Imagine you're going through something and then I come to you and I'm like, Priva, I'd like, let me, no, it could be specific, it could be anything. It could be, yes, but then I'm like, man, there's a time I went through this, a situation like this and this, and you find an opportunity to actually learn from that very experience. You can actually pick up a few points from and see how you can make a way forward for yourself. I would think that it's not entirely bad,
but
honestly.
Aggie, imagine
I'm not in a position to analyze and say, on the look of things, Shivan is not ready to receive this information.
That's what I'm saying. It depends on the situation. Imagine, God forbid, a friend or anyone we know is going for an abortion. You very well know they're going to do away with this child, and they're very scared because, I mean, I would say, looking at the different stories, when this lady was being interviewed, I remember on TV, she said, you know, she wasn't even ready to have that child. So these are some of the reasons why people abort. So imagine a situation, I'm going for abortion, I'm not comfortable about it. I still have two sides about it. And then you randomly come and tell me how someone died while aborting. Surely, aren't you traumatized?
How would I know? I mean, I wouldn't
Exactly,
know. I'm
that's
just
why I'm
telling you a
saying,
story.
If you're saying you need to talk to someone you trust and know, then you should absolutely know who you're talking
Okay, so
to,
Siobhan,
and then see if
just on
the
this
information
particular
that you
issue,
share.
on this particular issue, am I supposed to walk up to you and I'm like, hey, have you ever done an abortion? Or like, how can I see it?
Okay,
or
you
know?
guys.
Yeah, I
Okay,
get,
guys.
I get.
Let's bring the
I
conversation
get
back
you.
here. Yes.
Yes.
Still talking about trauma dumping. Let's be very clear that for it to be considered trauma dumping, there's some things that will happen. You're talking about a trusted person, but it's not trauma dumping if I'm sharing my traumatic experiences with you and I also get to understand the traumatic experiences that you've dealt with in life. Now that's not trauma dumping. We are venting, we are understanding each other, but trauma dumping is where, okay, fine. Let me just put it this way. For someone to understand, yes, that some of the questions you can actually ask yourself and figure out if you're actually sharing too much or you're oversharing is number one. Ask yourself, did the other person get a chance to share their feelings? You know, sometimes you talk to someone, you're talking and you're talking.
You're like popcorn
like a
popping
radio.
in the
But you guys,
saucepan.
I think
No,
this is a double standard.
No,
because
I don't
listen,
think
I
so.
remember there's a time we're having a conversation here. I don't remember what the topic was, but what we said is sometimes you just have to sit and listen. You don't have to say anything when someone is, venting to you. So now you're saying I should,
Okay, you can sit and listen, but do it with the right person. And this is how you can understand that the person is, rightfully listening to whatever you're saying without feeling overwhelmed. You understand that part? Well, some of the other questions that you can ask yourself is, does this person feel comfortable sharing their traumas with me? Same thing I mentioned. You could be oversharing your things with someone else, but they will never ever sit down and tell you their traumas. So there you should understand that at the end of the day, this is a one-sided relationship. It's not benefiting both of us. I'm the only one who's benefiting from
I'm
this.
giving in and you're holding out on it.
and when it's a
Why are you
therapist,
holding
does
out on
a
me?
therapist tell you anything about their life? No. You just go there and
Actually, they do.
They are paid
They
to do that as well.
They do. Let me tell you.
They
when
give
a
you
ther-
other
Listen,
people's scenarios and they
when
pretend that they're their
when
own.
a therapist is trying to get you, especially leave alone African countries, guys. What's therapy in Africa? Let's talk about developed countries. Let's talk about the G20s. Those guys, therapists, they actually do. They give a bit of their life for their patients to feel comfortable and know that it's actually humane that you're going through a certain scenario in life. Absolutely.
Okay.
They actually do.
Interesting.
So still, I'm not convinced.
You should really be convinced about this trauma dumping thing. At the end of the day, you should be able to trauma dump to someone who is able to receive it, who is able to share sometime their issues with you. But if you find you're always constantly sharing, and you see nothing from them, there's a problem there. But now, let's talk about how we can help people who are actively dealing with trauma without necessarily pushing them away, because you realize trauma dumping actually pushes people away. But in the interest of time, because we have a few minutes to go till the end of the show, just kindly tell us how people can help their friends who are dealing with trauma, since trauma dumping is really never an option, because at the end of the day, it emotionally affects both sides, the dumper and the dumpy.
What I would say, I think still will be in contradiction with what you just said, because I will tell you that if a friend is going through something, if a colleague is going through something, and you're seated probably somewhere, maybe having a cup of tea, and they are trauma dumping, just sit and listen. Sometimes you don't have to say anything. You don't even have to say, well, you see, I also had the same experience at some point in time. There is when people just want to vent. I know of people who tell you, me when I'm venting, I'm not even looking at receiving any solutions from you. I just want to put it out there, say it out there. That alone relieves me of the stress
So it
and
relieves
the
you and
emotions.
leaves the other person
No.
drained.
Why? I don't know how we shall help each other when it comes to trauma
Exactly.
dumping, because like I said, it will still be contradictory to what you just said. But yes, sometimes you just have to listen. And also I do disagree with the fact that you should be in position to trauma dump with someone who shares, their life experiences with you. Sometimes the other person doesn't have to share their life experiences. Maybe it's about you, that is your coping mechanism, or that is your way of letting go of situations. You just want to speak. You just
Actually,
want to
some
put it
people are okay
out
with,
there.
being trauma dumped on. They're okay. Like,
I wouldn't mind.
In the very first meeting, I'll meet you and say,
I love
why?
listening.
Why did your mother lose custody at 2 years? I want to know why your mother lost custody at 2 years.
High energy.
I'll end by saying this. The mere fact that Aggie said, there are some people who just want to vent, yes, and you feel relieved. So you're relieved at the expense of me, who has been left drained.
You've been left
You've
drained
come
at the end
telling
of
me
it all.
non-stop. You're telling me men has come. Will I ever date if you're constantly in my ears?
But you
and
should
telling
also
me
stick to your beliefs. You when someone trauma dumps on you, it doesn't mean you should now, you change your whole narrative to their experiences or to what they think. No, you can also stick to, your own school of thought.
Do you know why I hate
So
all
guys,
high school movies? It's trauma dumping for me, guys, but let's move on.
So like we have already established, trauma dumping can be done subconsciously. You're doing it, but you don't actually realize that this is something that you're doing. So I'm going to share with you ways of how you can avoid trauma dumping on your friends and family. Yes, I know Aggie mentioned that you can talk to a person that you can trust, like your mother.
So that you leave them drained.
Don't leave your mother drained.
Exactly.
Yes. And so these are some of the ways that you can avoid trauma dumping on friends and family. And number one is set a time limit for your conversation. You do not want to take up the entire afternoon speaking about your traumas. So pick an amount of time to talk through the situation and stick with it. Like I said at the beginning of the show, venting is, a couple of minutes. I had a bad day, this and this and this, and then you move on to something else. But if you must share your trauma, please do it in a nice way, very tactically well, that you don't leave the other person overwhelmed and, take the entire time. The other bit is that you can recall the last time you talked to them about the same subject. You realize that trauma dumping, it's very persistent. You're sharing the same thing over and over again. So if it was recent, have you reframed the situation since the last time you spoke? Have you taken any action? If your answers are no, then you may want to rethink reaching out and speaking about the same trauma. Then we also have the bit of, go in with a goal. Do you want to get their feedback on the situation, or do you want to process just what happened and figure out a way forward? So understand what you want to get out of, this small session that you're going to have with your friend or family as you, share your trauma. And then lastly, reach out in the appropriate way. So ask for what you want and gauge whether they're in a place physically, mentally, and emotionally to take on that request. And also, give them space to say no. For example, if you're going through something, tell them like, I want to share this and this with you, but I don't know if it's okay. And no pressure. There's no pressure for you to say yes, but at least first understand if people are in the right mind frame or space to take on the kind of traumas that you're sharing with them. Well, that's what we had for you this morning on our last segment of our show, which is our views. The show is going to continue on our social media platforms, so engage with us on Twitter, Facebook, and Instagram at CTV Uganda, and definitely we'll be giving feedback on social media. Well, that's all we had for you, and good morning. Well, thank you so much for joining us on Sunrise at Sea this morning. I wouldn't say it's a beautiful and bright day out there, but yes, it's a beautiful day, except that make sure you stay warm throughout the entire day. It's very chilly, so yes, a cup of coffee, Priva mentioned it, a cardigan if you can. Yes, something that you should keep top of your list for today's weather. And yes, we had great conversations on the Twitter jabs. We talked about the European Union resolution on ECOP, and Miss Brenda Akankunda gave us great insight, in-depth analysis of the pros and cons when it comes to this project. And also we wrapped up the conversation, or rather the show, with trauma dumping, and the ladies had different ways they expressed, or rather expressed their opinions on trauma dumping. I hope you got a thing or two, but remember, these conversations can all continue on our socials, Instagram, Twitter, and Facebook at CTV Uganda. If you missed out on this episode, you can be sure to catch up on our YouTube channel at CTV Uganda. For now, have a good day and stay warm.